Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Liang Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's stories. The U.S. House of Representatives held votes for the next speaker. California's Kevin McCarthy is a likely candidate, but has fell short of the needed votes. As more storms are expected in California, cities prepare for more potential flooding and disruption. Some experts and city officials remind the public about storm preparedness. And another earthquake struck Humboldt County. The county is still recovering from last month's quake. GOP leader Kevin McCarthy fell short of the votes needed to secure the gavel today. This is the first time in a century that there had to be multiple rounds of voting for House Speaker. Those who opposed McCarthy rallied behind an unexpected nominee. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
This is the first time in a century that members have had to go through multiple rounds of voting when electing a House Speaker. They went through 3 rounds and still no official Speaker is elected. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy never budged beyond 203 votes. Now he needs 218 votes to actually take the Speaker's gavel, but he never garnered that support. And, instead of him gaining votes as those voting rounds went on, he actually lost a vote in that 3rd round. Representative Byron Donalds threw his support behind Representative Jim Jordan instead of McCarthy. So we will have to wait to see how this plays out. But it was interesting to see what those opposed were saying. For example, Representative Chip Roy on the floor saying this is less about who's elected to that speakership position and more about shining a spotlight on Congress and reviving that spirit of debate. Here's a look.
So this is what the chamber looks like when we're actually debating and the bodies are in the chairs. How many times have we been down here giving speeches and there's not a soul in the chamber? Yet this is what it takes to get 435 people in the chamber and have an actual debate.
To my friends here on this side of the aisle, I would just say this. The differences we may have, the differences between Joyce and Jordan or Biggs and Bacon, they pale in comparison to the differences between us and the left, which now unfortunately controls the other party. So we had better come together and fight for these key things.
So yeah, Representative Jim Jordan was nominated in that 2nd round, and that 2nd round was very interesting because you have Representative Jim Jordan nominating McCarthy, and then you have Representative Matt Gaetz coming up and nominating Jim Jordan. And it's important to note that, even in that 1st round of voting, 6 members already cast their ballot for Jim Jordan when he wasn't even officially nominated, and that's nearly as many votes as Representative Andy Biggs got in that 1st round. Andy Biggs took 10 votes in that 1st round, and that was interesting because he's actually up for the speakership position, and Jim Jordan was right there with him even though he wasn't officially nominated yet in that 1st round. So there were, by the last round, there were around 20 Republicans who were still opposed to McCarthy, and of that group of 20 Republicans, we heard from some of them earlier today, and they said that they proposed a deal to McCarthy that could have gotten him 218 votes. One thing that they wanted, for example, was for McCarthy to commit to holding a vote on term limits, as well as some other measures. McCarthy rejected that deal. That's what that Republican group says, at least. And McCarthy says that the reason why he rejected it is because he doesn't want to empower certain members over others. And McCarthy says he's up for this challenge, saying that, he reflected on his record-breaking floor speech, and he said that he can also have a record for the longest speaker's vote, too. So this is, going to play out over the next couple of days. The House has adjourned for the night. They will return tomorrow at 12. Where these voting rounds will continue to play out. It could take days. The longest it ever took was 2 months, and that was back in the 1850s.
Weather experts are expecting a major storm and heavy rain heading into Wednesday and Thursday. A UCLA climate scientist says the next 10-plus days looks like it will be rough in terms of flood risk in Northern California. NTD's David Lamb has the details.
After major storms and an atmospheric river moved into California the past few days, the state's first snowpack measurement of the year recorded 55.5 inches of snow depth. This is 177% of average for the Phillips station.
Our snowpack is actually off to one of its best start in the past 40 years. However, that doesn't mean we're out of the woods quite yet, and we must continue to remain vigilant and continue to conserve water.
An upcoming major storm is looming over the middle of the week for California. San Francisco mayor and officials remind the public about storm preparedness. They said they already had 2,500 volunteers to clear out 3,800 storm drains to prepare.
In fact, what we saw within a 24-hour period was a 5.5 inches of rain, which is one of the second largest amounts of rains that we have seen within a 24-hour period. In fact, it had not happened in San Francisco in this capacity since 1849.
The National Weather Service says the upcoming storm for Wednesday will likely be one of the most impactful systems on a widespread scale. It says the impacts will include widespread flooding, roads washing out, hillside collapsing, trees down, widespread power outages, immediate disruption to commerce, and the worst of all, likely loss of human life. This is truly a brutal system that we are looking at and needs to be taken seriously.
It will also affect Southern California, at least as far south as Los Angeles County, and there could be some pretty heavy precipitation and strong winds that cause some problems down south as well. The main impacts are going to be in Northern California, though, because the storm will be stronger up there and the antecedent conditions are much wetter.
Daniel Swain, a UCLA climate scientist, says Californians can expect a meteorological bomb cyclone coming Wednesday and Thursday.
It will become a meteorological bomb cyclone. Yes, that is an official meteorological term.
It refers to a rapidly deepening low-pressure system and set to build up about 500 to 800 miles west-northwest of California. It won't come close to the state, but will bring storms to California.
So this storm will be a pretty high-impact storm. Rainfall rates are going to be high for a few hours around the time of cold frontal passage. Winds will be quite strong, even at lower elevations. And so given how saturated the soils are, this is likely to produce pretty widespread minor to moderate flooding, especially urban and creek flooding.
But what does this mean for California's drought? Swain says it can provide temporary drought relief.
In the short term, I think we will have largely alleviated the short-term drought in Northern California. So from a surface soil moisture perspective, from a stream flow perspective, everything is going to look pretty good.
For the upcoming storm, San Francisco city officials recommend having at least a 3-day survival kit, which should include essentials such as water, a first aid kit, flashlights, non-perishable food, and warm clothing. They also remind people to check on friends and family who may need assistance during the storm, especially elderly or those with disabilities. To keep drains from getting clogged, remove debris and sweep up any leaves from sidewalks and storm drains. If the power goes out, unplug and turn off appliances. Leave one light on to signal when power is restored. The city also said that emergencies are opportunities to come together and support those around you, and that sharing a meal, book, or phone charger are even more meaningful in the days after an emergency than before. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
In Sacramento, 2 people died and nearly 200,000 homes and businesses were without power on New Year's Eve. A powerful storm brought the state flash flooding, mudslides, and winds of up to 60 miles per hour.
On Sunday morning, 2 levees along the Cosumnes River broke overnight, flooding roads, homes, and part of the highway. According to local reports, 1 person was found dead in a submerged vehicle on Highway 99 in the South Sacramento area. The Cosumnes Fire Department confirmed with CBS 13 that a department helicopter discovered the vehicle submerged near the highway at around 10 a.m. Deputy Fire Chief Dan Quiggle told Cap Radio, "Our understanding is the vehicle was washed off the roadway sometime in the night, and it appears the person never exited the vehicle." No further details were provided. A second individual, a 72-year-old, died after being struck by a fallen tree at a Santa Cruz park. According to local reports, the individual was pronounced dead at the scene. The Sacramento Municipal Utility District reported that over 165,000 customers were without power as of 10 p.m. last Saturday. That figure dropped to around 5,300 as of January 2nd. On Saturday evening, Sacramento County declared a state of emergency and residents were ordered to shelter in place. Flash flooding warnings were extended on Sunday after the storm wreaked havoc, downing trees and power lines and stranding vehicles. In the Point Pleasant, Glanville Tract, and Franklin Pond areas, residents were ordered to evacuate before rising water levels made leaving the area impossible. The National Weather Service expects the storm to move into the central U.S., bringing snow to the Sierra Nevada mountains, the Rockies, and the northern plains before eventually pushing into parts of the Midwest.
On the first day of the new year, another earthquake struck Northern California. The area is still recovering from a previous earthquake that struck the same region last month.
On January 1st, a 5.4 magnitude earthquake struck the Rio Del region of California. The U.S. Geological Survey says the earthquake was at a depth of 19 miles. That same area of California, located in Humboldt County, was jolted by a magnitude 6.4 earthquake on December 20th. The earthquake crumpled homes and roads, ruptured utility lines, and left thousands of residents without running water and electricity. The region is known for relatively frequent seismic activity, but the 6.4 magnitude earthquake caused more disruption than expected. In addition to the ground shaking, Northern California was also battered by heavy rains that triggered severe flooding, submerging roads, and forcing evacuations in certain areas just as residents prepared to ring in the new year.
A 4-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy and 2 adults survived after their car plunged off a Northern California cliff. The area along the Pacific Coast Highway is known as the Devil's Slide. The area is known for fatal wrecks. The family in a Tesla sedan plummeted more than 250 feet from the highway and crashed into rocks. Authorities say it appears to have flipped a few times before landing on its wheels, wedged against the cliff just feet from the surf. Devil's Slide is a steep, rocky, and winding coastal area about 15 miles south of San Francisco. Crashes there rarely end with survivors. The victims were initially listed in critical condition, but all 4 were conscious and alert when rescuers arrived. Crews set up a rope system from the highway to lower firefighters down the cliff. Expecting to recover bodies, they were glad to carry out a rescue operation instead. We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. Southern California authorities have shut down over 100 unpermitted sidewalk vendors. They cited unsanitary food preparation. A teenage actor recently passed away. The coroner's office ruled death as an overdose. And the annual Rose Parade returned to Southern California. Colorful floats and marching bands celebrate the new year. That and more on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Liang Zhang. Authorities have shut down a large number of unpermitted sidewalk vendors in the last 6 weeks in Santa Ana. City officials claimed these vendors sold food unfit for human consumption.
Over 100 unpermitted sidewalk vendors have been shut down by Santa Ana authorities in the last 6 weeks. Orange County Healthcare Agency personnel collaborated with police to carry out the shutdowns. According to city officials, the vendors have sold food, quote, unfit for human consumption. Santa Ana Mayor Valerie Amezcua told the Epoch Times, the big thing is safety. The food was not stored and cooked properly. Similarly, some employees of local food truck vendors, such as Cabanas Tacos, told the Epoch Times that they support the shutdowns. They said without electricity and the necessary equipment, illegitimate street vendors run the risk of contaminating their food. One worker who preferred to remain anonymous said it's very different. We have regulations, we have electricity, we have water, we have many things. They have nothing. It's not good. When buying food from a street vendor, city officials advise members of the public to check that a health permit is displayed.
After nearly 30 years, investigators in Orange County are hoping to revive a fatal stabbing cold case. Investigators believe that new technology can help them identify a person of interest from the unsolved homicide.
Orange County authorities are using new forensic tools to revive a 1993 cold case. On August 11, 1993, 61-year-old Alan J. Schwalbe was stabbed to death. Deputies found the victim's body in the 300 block of 22nd Street in an unincorporated area of Costa Mesa. Deputies say there was no evidence of a struggle or signs of someone breaking into the residence, and the killer did not ransack the location. According to Sheriff Investigator Bob Taft, forensic technology is continuously expanding. He says items that may have been undetectable just a few short years ago now have the possibility of being discovered, and these discoveries can foster new investigative leads. In addition to new technology, people's friendships, alliances, and associations change over time. People who may have been reluctant to come forward during the original investigation may feel more at ease coming forward now because of a change in these associations. The results from recent analysis of the evidence with updated technology are still pending. Anyone who has relevant information for detectives was asked to call 714-647-7055 or email coldcase@ocsheriff.gov. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Tyler Sanders has been confirmed to have passed away. The coroner's office ruled that the teen actor died from an accidental fentanyl overdose. The Los Angeles coroner's office has confirmed the passing of Tyler Sanders. The office ruled that the star of Amazon's Just Add Magic Mystery City died from an accidental fentanyl overdose. Sanders, just 18 years old, was found by a friend unresponsive inside his apartment in Glendale on June 16. The coroner's report added that the teen had a history of drug use. Additionally, drug paraphernalia was found at the apartment. The Los Angeles Times reported that Sanders had texted his friend the night before, saying that he had been using fentanyl. Sanders guest starred in a variety of films. Months before his death, he acted in a supporting role in The Price We Pay. Sanders will appear posthumously in The Price We Pay when it premieres in January. Flower-covered floats, marching bands, and equestrian units celebrated the New Year on Monday as the 134th Rose Parade slipped through a gap in California storms. The 134th Rose Parade went off without rain as it made its way in Pasadena, California on Monday. This year's Rose Parade theme is Turning the Corner. Flower-covered floats, marching bands, and equestrian units celebrated the New Year with traditional pomp. Former Arizona Representative Gabby Giffords, who survived a 2011 shooting, served as Grand Marshal. Amy Winscott, president of the Tournament of Roses, told the television audience, quote, "The new year is a time for renewal, an opportunity for a fresh start." Judges give Donate Live's Red Shiny Street Dragon the Sweepstakes Award for Most Beautiful Entry. The parade and thousands of spectators were lucky enough to stay dry, as a gap in California's siege of drenching storms gave a bright and clear sky to ring in the new year. Shen wrapped up its last performance in San Jose on New Year's Day. A former ballerina who watched it with her husband described its performers as her heroes.
In San Jose, a former ballerina who used to perform at the Center for the Performing Arts returned as an audience member to watch Shen Yun for the second time.
When watching all the dancers, I can just see the exquisite classical training. It's so present in everything they do. The hand lines, the eye lines, everything is there. And it's beautiful and exquisite, and you are my heroes, and keep it up.
She attended with her husband, who saw Shen Yun for the first time.
Oh, it's a beautiful production. I was really inspired. I didn't know what to expect. I was really impressed with the beauty, the color, the choreography, the storyline that it's telling, and the fact that it really touches the heart and soul, really, of every human being on the planet.
Most of the artists are practitioners of Falun Gong, a peaceful meditation practice from the Buddhist tradition, a group currently being persecuted under China's communist regime. New York-based Shen Yun was founded in 2006 by leading Chinese artists who fled the persecution.
We think that tradition is not relevant, but to my point where people are suffering for just their religion and their values and the traditions that they hold sacred and dear to their heart. And we can all learn from these artists because they are, in spite of death, persecution, and all these things that come to them and their families, they have courage in their heart to stand for what they believe in, and we all need some of that.
I don't care what your religion or what your faith is, it speaks to freedom and liberty and truth and beauty. What they talked about, compassion, some of the words that they used, and they talked about the Creator a lot, and the fact that the real evil, one of the evils that is perpetrated upon our society is atheism and evolution.
Much of China's traditional culture is divinely inspired, one of living in harmony with heaven and earth. The couple feels it's important to remember cultural traditions.
If we forget all the things that are sacred to us, what are we living for? We're just existing in a state of slavery, ultimately, to ourselves, because without striving for divine nature and sacred music and art, what are we living for? We're just living to suffer and to be a slave.
It's a huge eye-opener because they speak the truth here. And it's another viewpoint. You have to be open-minded. You have to compare all the information that's out there. You can't listen to just any one source anymore. A lot of people have a very narrow field of news, a very narrow field of influencers, and that tends to breed blindness. And it will breed catastrophe if you don't compare all the data and think for yourself and use the power of observation.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I feel the spirit behind the performance, and it touches my heart. It makes me feel pangs of jealousy. I wish it was me. But yes, I still draw a lot from the beauty that they give us.
Shen Yun performs at San Francisco's War Memorial Opera House next. NTD News, San Jose, California.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.